Hello everyone. I hope everyone's had a wonderful day so far. Today we'll be going through some fundamentals surrounding the game that is Disco. Regardless of if you're a newcomer or a veteran, I'm sure there's something interesting to find. Make sure to check the description below for timestamps if that helps you out. Besides all that, let's get into it. First and foremost, we need to get you combat trained, so let's open up the escape menu and have a look at the move list. As you can see, there are many moves in your arsenal, each having their own purpose and style. I'll be going through these with reference to mouse and keyboard binds, although all combat options are completable on a controller of choice as well. The attack is the bread and butter of Charlie's kit. To perform, use left click when near an enemy. Try to aim for perfect hits by lining your clicks to the song's BPM. The heavy attack can be used by holding and then releasing left click, with the charge window taking roughly 1 second. This attack sends enemies flying across the arena and will instantly put them in finisher range if they hit a wall. Using heavy attacks on a downed enemy will cause you to do one of these. A quick tip is that Charlie's lower half will glow when the attack is ready. Attacking downed enemies regularly will cause them to bounce, opening up aerial options. You can counter enemy moves by using right click. Depending on the state of an enemy's attack, you'll perform a missed, standard, or perfect counter. Missed counters reset your beat number, standard counters open up a finisher, and perfect counters will eliminate the enemy. Counters can only be performed on yellow outline attacks. To dodge, you need to hit the spacebar. Notably, there are two types of dodge: a freeform dodge and an enemy dodge. Dodging on beat will give you score and extra distance compared to a standard dodge, whilst an enemy dodge is more strict on direction but opens up flashbacks if timed correctly. To perform a flashback, you need to land a perfect dodge and then follow up quickly with a left click. Make sure to get your timing down, as the flashback will put almost all enemies straight into the finisher state. The drumstick toss can be performed by pressing R. Charlie will throw his stick and will leave a string that you can follow with left click. This will take you to the hit target. The upgraded toss allows you to throw 3 sticks, letting you take the one you desire. This action can be performed by holding and releasing R. Much like the heavy attack, Charlie's upper half will glow, indicating that the attack is charged. Although this isn't in the moves list, if you are in fever rush range of an enemy hit with the drumstick toss, you can fever rush them and then do a standard attack, and you get this cool kinda torpedo action. I don't think it has a name, but it's pretty cool. Where would Charlie be without his fever rush? Simply hold shift and left click once you've built a bit of fever meter, and you can start rapidly attacking opponents. Although it doesn't do very much damage, it's a very versatile tool, and I'd highly recommend getting sharp with it. It makes for a great gap closer too. The finisher is a core tool in Deader's Disco. Simply hit E after performing enough damage and you will eliminate the enemy. Enemies in finisher range will have a purple outline. Whilst performing a finisher, you'll become impervious to most attacks. Takedowns are the big brother to the finisher. Hit F while you have a takedown token, which is granted by dealing damage, to instantly eliminate an enemy. Enemies in the down state, often from large knockback, can be kept afloat with most attacks in the game. An enemy that has been bounced by being attacked while down can be thrown to the ground using a takedown. Dance moves are crucial to having maximum swagger. Inputting either 1 to 4 or using T, Charlie will pop a random dance move from his arsenal. I'm not sure how many there is in total, but they all do have a lot of personality, and some are even references. If you didn't know, you can actually dodge attacks by dancing. You don't gain or lose anything from doing this, but it's just a nifty little mechanic. Running is new to the early access. You can perform it by holding spacebar. From a run, you can left click to do a slide attack. This will always knock enemies airborne and can be used to break shields or interrupt attacks. Finally is the windmill, a really cool attack that I often underutilize. You can do a windmill by holding left click, much like the heavy attack, rapidly spin in a circle using WASD, and release. Now, before anyone goes crazy in the comments, everything beforehand was shown off with a minimal HUD, which is how I like to play, but naturally, the game will look a lot more like this, having indicators for enemy attacks and a metronome at the bottom to track the BPM of your chosen song. If you want to get a feel for the game, I'd highly recommend starting with the default settings, although here's what I play with if you're interested. Now that we've covered the basics, let's get into special abilities. This is your fever bar. You're going to need to fill it up before you start getting all stylish on the dance floor. How would you do that, you ask? Well, practically anything. Starting with takedowns and finishes, freeform dodging on beat, counters, attacking on beat, drumstick tossing. I mean, really the whole thing. But before you start using your fever, make sure your settings are comfortable. Go check out your binds and set them to a way that feels right to you. Here's mine for example. Starting off, we have the Showstopper. On use, it'll drain 1 bar of fever and 1 extra per second held out. Whilst out, you'll block almost all attacks, and timing them correctly, as you would a counter, allows you to input an uppercut attack afterwards. This attack is devastating in terms of damage, and will hit surrounding enemies. Between the block and uppercut, you can input other attacks, such as a fever rush or a drumstick toss. Next up is the base Invader. Costing 2 bars of fever, this ability has 3 levels of charge, with the first and second causing horizontal and vertical knockback, respectively, whilst the third annihilates targets that come in contact. This ability is great at getting crowds off you ASAP, for both its heavy crowd control and horde damage. You can run whilst charging this weapon, though it's hard to do so without binding a second run key, as dodging will cancel the ability. To do so, continue to the settings and find a key that's comfortable for you. I tend to use C, although it's down to personal preference. Here's a clip of me running without dodging for reference. Next is Thunderstruck, a 2-bar attack that costs an extra 1 bar to reuse in quick succession. For example, I have health bars on, as the damage from Thunderstruck has unique properties. Normally, if you hit an enemy a couple times, leave them for a bit, and come back, they've likely fully recovered their health. Or, if an enemy is outright put in finisher range, they'll fully recover their health bar upon exiting said state. However, enemies hit by Thunderstruck will not recover health whilst under the debuff, indicated by the lightning around their model. This can have its uses, but it can also be difficult to get used to. If you're playing with health bars off, it will not be as clear of an indicator for enemies previously hit by Thunderstruck after the visual effects disappear. A little note, casting Thunderstruck right after dashing will lead to Charlie ripping a slide as he rides the lightning, which is pretty cool. I'd highly recommend using this ability to gain massive score against hordes of bad guys, as its payout with a multiplier is pretty insane. Last up is the Singularity, a black hole ability that takes 2 bars to cast and another 1 to grow its size and strength. Although it stops growing after expending a total of 4 bars, you can keep spending fever to up the duration of the attack. Note that while channeling, you can slightly turn using the movement keys, albeit a tad slow. The attack itself is a simple sphere that will cause nearby enemies to enter an aerial state, in which they can be punished by attacks, takedowns, and the like. The enemy directly hit with the staff will take a rather large amount of damage, but other enemies will need to be weakened before performing a finisher. The coolest part of this ability is being able to heavy attack the Singularity, sending it flying forward. The damage of the attack is dependent on the amount of fever spent on casting the Singularity, which I believe caps out at 4 bars. Although I rarely take this ability, I'm going to admit that it's pretty fun to use. In the next section, we will be covering the enemies. The evil guys? I mean, the game states that they're called enemies. So, here are the enemies. This guy here is known as the Stan, the first enemy you'll encounter in Dead as Disco. The Stan is essentially the white bread of enemies. Nothing special up their sleeve, no unique mechanics, essentially a walking punching bag. They're easily stunnable out of their attacks and will only try attacking with counterable options, leaving them very open to being dealt with. Everything you've learnt in previous sections can be applied here. The Stan is the most often generated enemy, essentially being the fodder of the game. On average, they have a health pool of 7 attacks, or 13 Fever Rush hits. Although, when you're out of sync, you'll do less damage. There isn't really much else to say about the Stan, sadly, so I think it's best we move on. Next up, we have the Mosher. This guy only really has one trick, running. Well, running straight at you. As far as I'm aware, he literally doesn't have another option. The good news? You can stop it fairly easily. There's a lot of counterplay for the Mosher. All the special abilities work if you time them right, or you can even time a perfect regular attack to knock them out. If you're uneasy about meeting force with force, you can always just dodge the attacks as well. These guys will run straight through other enemies too, often making them an immediate threat, though they can be disposed of easily, long as you don't stress out. Due to their attacks having a red outline, note that they can't be directly countered. This is the Guard. Much like the Mosher, they carry an uncounterable attack, so dodging and using the Showstopper is premium. This enemy isn't too scary once you figure them out. They're practically a stand with a big stick. They're vulnerable to all parts of Charlie's kit, but you do have to watch out for their heavy stun resistance. Although the Guard can perform either a counterable or uncounterable attack, they cannot be stunned during either, so always play with a dodge in your pocket. If you're having troubles discerning the differences between counterable and uncounterable attacks, you can always play it safe by pulling up the Showstopper early. But besides that, I would recommend just playing safe when these guys are on the field, as a large smack will often leave you down a full heart. This is the Guard's big brother, the Riot Guard. As you may notice, there's one big difference between the two, and it's not the fact that they're different colours. Before you start swinging at the Riot Guard, note that the shield is impervious to standard attacks. You're going to need to either slip around or find a way to break through to actually start damaging the enemy. Thankfully, most special abilities have a way to break the shield, besides Fever Rush. Although you'll get knocked back if unsuccessful, you won't lose health to the shield bash, only your combo, which is nice. To recommend a few options, the base Invader's Uncharged and Charged attack, Thunderstruck, and Heavy attack are all very reliable sources of destroying the shield. However, the best tool against them will always be the Takedown, as it bypasses the shield and will outright eliminate the Riot Guard. This is also true for the fully charged base Invader. Besides the shield, they behave almost identically to the standard Guard, throwing out both counterable and uncounterable attacks. I would highly advise watching out for their jump attacks, which are uncounterable, as they have the ability to cross most arenas with ease, which most players wouldn't expect for a hulking guy with a shield. This is the Fallen Doll, arguably the second most standard enemy in Dead as Disco. Much like the Stan, they only have one means of damage, and it's counterable. After a short wind-up, the Fallen Doll will lunge a very long distance to try hit Charlie. Fortunately, 1. The counter window is very large for this enemy, and 2. They can be interrupted beforehand very easily. Due to its simplicity, it has no resistances to stun, and will take hefty damage from the Showstopper and fully charged base Invader. There are a few things to note. Fallen Dolls explode on kill, which will damage both you and nearby enemies, and naturally have a larger health pool than the rest of the cast. Here's an example of that beefy health pool, taking 9 hits to reach a KO. Regarding the explosion, it cannot be cancelled by abilities or other standard attacks. It can be blocked by Showstopper, yet you won't be granted an uppercut charge afterwards. What does work is the takedown though. Just as a note, Fallen Dolls will not be primed to explode if you deal with them through either takedowns or finishes. This is the Stardoll Sniper, the only real ranged enemy in Dead as Disco. After 3 beats, they'll try shooting Charlie with a laser. There's not much to it really. The Stardolls aren't modified in any particular way, having equal health to a Stan, not being resistant to any forms of crowd control, and their attacks are very telegraphed, making them not particularly dangerous as a foe, but can be hard to manage in groups. To deal with a sniper, you can try getting close and personal, disrupting their attacks easily with a drumstick toss and rush down, blocking the lasers with the Showstopper, or even jumping over them as a whole, if you feel like a daredevil. The Stardoll only has one attack, and it's uncounterable, so always make sure to prioritize dodging against them. I personally enjoy making use of the flashback option, as you can travel an arena's length with ease. Since the flashback puts enemies into the finisher state, you can abuse the invincibility that performing a finisher gives you, avoiding the hefty fire from incoming attacks. As a note, you can also dodge the lasers with a windmill attack. Isn't that nifty? The Surging Echo is one of 2 new enemies added to the game beyond the demo. Imbued with electricity, these enemies dash around the field at wicked speeds and are often hard to catch without the use of special abilities. They have a lot of counterplay, being vulnerable to some attacks such as the counter, flash step, showstopper parry, thunderstruck, takedown, fever rush, singularity and drumstick toss, whilst being immune to others such as the base invader, standard attacks, dash attack, heavy attacks and the windmill. These enemies can hit you with either counterable or uncounterable attacks, so always stay prepared. For players that are unfamiliar to the Echo, landing a counter may be quite hard, so I would highly recommend bringing in the Showstopper, although the drumstick toss is highly effective as long as you throw it early enough. The vulnerability window for Surging Echoes is placed both before and after their attacks. There's a tricky window whilst they're lunging that will protect them from most attacks that they can normally be hit by, so it's best to give them space while they're attacking. Practice makes perfect, so don't overthink it and just focus on getting those awkward timings down. Last up, we have the Bouncer. The Bouncer is the second new enemy to the early access, sporting high health and brutal attacks. The Bouncer has 2 types of close range attack, being the counterable 3-hit swing or the uncounterable 1-hit uppercut. The Bouncer will attack faster than you give him credit for and can easily catch off newer players with his sheer speed and force. When out of range, the Bouncer will unleash an uncounterable belly flop, so watch out for that. The biggest thing of note is that the Bouncer is completely immune to being stunned, so don't try cheese him with Thunderstruck or Singularity. The best way to approach the Bouncer in my opinion is cycling standard hits, takedowns, and showstopper uppercuts, as other options, such as the base invader, leaves you too vulnerable to his swift attacks. This enemy has the largest health pool in the game, besides bosses, so consistency will always beat dumb luck when facing him. Now that we've covered how to play the game, we're going to need some music. So for our last section, here's how to import music in Dead as Disco. First and foremost, head over to Infinite Disco and select Free Play. From there, you're going to want to select Add Music at the top of the song list and select your file. Make sure the file you have is audio only. I got this track from the official NCS website, there'll be a link down below. You don't have to do this, but I like separating the artist from the song. Now, we need the tempo. There's a way to do it in game, but I'm going to show you how I tend to find my tempo. Open up your browser of choice and come to either songbpm.com or tunebat.com. Plug in your song that you want to have, typing out the artist, dash, the song, and it should come up with something like this. I find it good to cross-reference, so I'll be doing it on both. If your song is niche and not listed, or you think the BPM that's given is wrong, you can also click on the Key and BPM Finder in TuneBat, letting you upload files and get a newly generated BPM. As all three sources here tell me that the song is 126 BPM, I'm very confident that this will be the correct BPM. Now, we can plug in 126 tempo and just click play, right? Well, let's see. Now, you don't have to be a music mastermind to see that something's wrong here, and that's because we didn't set the beat offset. Come to the advanced editor and take a look. This will almost always be needed when making a song, so let me guide you through it. You can hit space to start playing the song. Which is nice, but you'll need this beat sound option to make sure your BPM is on track. If you can't find the BPM of your song, you can use the calibrate option. However, I haven't needed to use the option yet, so we'll be skipping it for today, but I'm sure others have covered it in great detail. So to start off, you'll see our offset is at 0. The beat isn't really, on beat. So we're going to hold shift and hold in the scroll wheel whilst moving our mouse, and that'll change the offset. If you're zoomed out, it'll move quickly, but if you're zoomed in, it'll be more precise, which I prefer. There's no real trick when it comes to finding the right offset, besides trying to line up the beat sound with a strong beat in the background. So what I do personally is move the playing pin to a part of the song that has a strong, consistent beat, and then try to move the offset around that. For this song, I'll be covering this section. Eventually, you'll line it up, and hear that you've got it pretty on par. With the beat re-emerging, I just need to make a couple tweaks. Now before I load back in, I'm going to clip off the end of my song so it ends when I want. Now, let's give this a shot. I don't know about you, but that sounds much better to me. Truly, this is what Dead as Disco is all about. Anyways guys, that's all from me today. Hope you all learnt something, and if you didn't, well, Charlie's head bob speed depends on the jukebox track's BPM. Not sure if that's common knowledge or not, but, I don't know. Fun fact Friday on a Wednesday. But anyway, if you liked the video, let me know. Maybe leave a like, sub, or comment. If this video helps convince you to get Dead as Disco, make sure to check my affiliate link in the descriptions. They know that I sent you over. Now, besides all that, thank you all and good luck. Henry McIlvaney out.